Hey, if you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks Thursday night. It's the 4th of November. It's 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, 9 Eastern. If you're joining us any other time than that, you've got the recorded version. That's okay. Hang tight. We're gonna goof around in the pre-show, and then we'll get to the show. And Mike, I didn't get any feedback on last week's show at all. That the goof aroundery that we did in the beginning, it took us a while to get the channels. Gavin, usually I'll get a few people in YouTube who are like, get to the content. And you're like, that's not what we do.
Yeah.
That's just not what we do. So Mike, I took your recommendation and I got the Shiner Holiday Cheer going on here.
It's hard to beat.
It feels weird. It's a little early for that.
Yeah, well, I was shocked to see it when I saw the cases show up at Hy-Vee, which is at one of our local grocery stores here. I was shocked. I was like, "Is it that season already?" But I guess right after Oktoberfest, that's kind of the next thing. There's no like November-y beer, I would say. Maybe there is.
There is this gap, this Oktoberfest to Christmas gap.
Yeah, so they must just say, "Hey, ship it out as soon as." I mean, that was October when it was in the stores already.
Yeah. Do you know of other Christmas beers? Will there be? Do you think there'll be more?
There's the not Christmassy beers. There's like the wintry beers, right?
Yeah, I guess the winter lagers.
There's what's that really popular one here? This
Sam Adams has one. You know, and Joe or Jim. I saw a shoe and I called him Joe. Jim Shoemaker is right. The stouts come out in the winter.
Yeah,
you're
right.
I mean, that's kind of what we should be doing anyways. But so, Mike, what do you have?
Oh man, you guys are making fun of me again. I defaulted back to Coors Light. I didn't have anything fancy for this week.
Unbelievable. Do I need to like give you a bigger check for this thing? Or
yeah, I know. If you could start paying me more, that'd be great. I could afford more than Coors Light. No, Hannah and I have been having a lot of the vanilla beans and things like that. And we actually switched over. We were trying some of the ciders. There's some really good local ciders from around here that we've been having. And it's just sometimes like you kind of go through those. Like, okay, I kind of want something a little bit lighter, not as mouthfeel at the end. And being on a podcast talking to, I find it easier to have a lighter beer than those thicker beers.
Totally. Gavin, you're a radio guy. We were talking to you in pre-show a little bit. And so when you're on the air, what's your refreshment? What do you like to drink while you're doing your show? We may talk about it a little bit in our show, so don't give too much away about that. What do you like to drink while you're podcasting / radio?
Oh, sometimes I just have like a water, but right now I have SodaStream. Ooh. You know, I'm in the SodaStream phase, so I have like a SodaStream.
Those are the ones where you put it in and you do some things.
And they just signed a contract with Pepsi, so they're going to be releasing Pepsi flavors. So I haven't tried it yet, but I will eventually when I run out of my generic cola flavor.
Yeah.
I've always been curious on that. So what is the machine just causing the fizz, and do you already have the flavoring in the water, or does the machine like inject the flavor?
Gavin, show the bottle while you're talking about.
Yeah, because I've seen those bottles, and I've always just been curious like what the machine actually does.
Yeah. The machine, you just take you just fill the bottle with water. You put it in the machine, and it's just like a CO2 cartridge. It just shoots it in, fizzes the water, and then you add the flavor. You lightly mix it. You don't want to shake it. And you got like they have all different flavors. So you have like root beer, you have Sprite, well, what they call Sprite, it's basically mocking other flavors.
And healthier than a soda, though. I'm guessing
no sugar, well, not mocking, but they're kind of like copying. But you can get diet, or you can get the regular cola, or like I said, they have Diet Pepsi now, and they have regular Pepsi. So I want to try that and compare it to see what it's like.
Okay.
Right.
So Brian says he's been thinking about checking out SodaStream. Would you recommend it? I mean, if someone was thinking of, and why do you like it? I mean, what's I could buy soda in a can, but you could make it. Why do you like it?
It works out cheaper for one, right? And like you can make something for everybody. So like the wife just likes the fizzy water, or she'll add some lemon or lime in it, right? Where I'll drink the cola, or if I'm feeling for a Sprite, I'll have the Sprite type flavor, There's many different flavors you can go through. They have orange, cream soda. I highly recommend it, and it's not that expensive. Like it's the actual device is pretty cheap. They catch you with the refills though. I think that's where it's like a monthly subscription. You'll go through it pretty quick too.
Razors and razor blades, my friend. Right?
They'll get you with one thing.
Give you the handle.
Yeah.
They're getting you on the blades. Micah Librant, who's been on the show a couple times, she's a big SodaStream fan and really likes hers.
Yeah.
And so I think it is. Listen, we talked about this in a show a while back with Aaron. You know, I'm an espresso guy. That's kind of the SodaStream of coffee, right? And you have all kind, man, their flavors, they got now just tons of different flavors. And I tried their they're not peppermint. I tried their pumpkin spice. That was kind of a special one. Yeah, not such a great idea, but I'll get through it. It was okay. It was
that was
okay.
Like the fudge for me, like the chocolate fudge flavor.
Yeah, the fudge is coming up for me.
But I just did a reorder, and I went through all the ones that you guys talked about in the last show.
Yeah.
So Colombia, Mexico, Peruvian,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
I went with a bunch of those. Had the black. There's like a black rainforest one, and I had that today. The shipment arrived. I love when the Nespresso shipment arrives. Like, ooh, it's like goodies. Instantly went over and made a cup of the black forest one. It was delicious.
Yeah. Colombia is the one is kind of one of my go-tos on that. Mexico too. Those are both pretty good. Well, Gavin, you a coffee guy at all? Do you do?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes. When listening to the Nespresso show, I bought one, but the wife will kill me. I've had the Keurig.
Yeah.
And you use that for a while, and then I got tired of it. This is like what Mike does, right? So I got tired of it quickly. Then what was the other one? There's Keurig. There was the competition to Keurig. Oh,
I don't know. Keurig
I went through.
You're in Canada, so maybe it's a different.
Okay, yeah,
different.
I went through 2 different systems though,
Okay.
and I had my phase, and then I got rid of them, and she got mad because I threw out the machines, And now I'm looking at the Nespresso, and she's like, no. Just go to Tim Hortons,
Tim Hortons, not bad coffee.
I will say I was a big Keurig guy before too, and then I actually was getting to the phase where I got rid of that and went back to just classic pot of coffee brewer. And the thing I like about the Nespresso is I felt like the Keurig kept needing to be cleaned, and it wasn't producing the same taste, and I felt like flavors got carried over from pod to pod. And the Nespresso, for some reason, maybe it's because it's spinning it the whole time while it's making, I've had that espresso now for 2 years, and I've only done the descaling once, and it really didn't need it. It was just because I was like, I should probably do that after a year. And I feel like the flavors is consistent. The foam on top is amazing.
Oh,
I've been loving it. That thing,
yeah.
I haven't gotten tired of it.
No, what do they call that foam on coffee?
Creme?
Creme?
I don't know. And it's so weird that comes out not because of any milk, not because of any. It's just because it's spinning that.
It's spinning it around
the inside.
Yeah, Gavin, you should definitely figure a way to sneak an espresso in. It's pretty great.
Tassimo, that was the other one.
Tassimo
and Keurig.
Yep. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So no, she'll kill me. I need to at least give a buffer of maybe another year before I even think about it.
Yeah.
Well, shoot. Well, maybe at some point. Since I've been going back in, a couple days a week, 1 or 2, I cleaned out the Nespresso at work and then ordered some, pods just for work. So I have work pods and I have pods here. I drink way more. I mean, I was drinking 1 Nespresso pod a day before the pandemic because I was making a latte. So I'd use the Nespresso shots. I'm sorry, I'd use the espresso shots.
Mm-hmm.
And those are like $1. They're super cheap. You get, now, I am drinking, so I'm brewing coffee and I'm making one so I make an espresso while I'm brewing or perking one on the stove. And then if I just need an extra jolt or whatever during the day, I'll make another one. I'm drinking 2 or 3 on the weekend. So the pandemic definitely drove up my, my Nespresso bill for sure. Mike, this is as good. This is as good as I remember. I'm gonna drink a lot of this.
They're so good.
Oh my God, I forgot how good it is.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, Gavin, thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks for coming on, and I'll introduce you here in a minute. But let me get. You know how this works. You've listened to us a few times, I think.
Yeah.
So you know how this goes.
Just a few.
Let me kick this thing off. Here we go. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 511, recorded on November 4th, 2021. Here at Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here. Mike, the weather Like this is just Nebraska just keeps giving. Like very little rain, cool weather. It's so great. I know snow is coming, but we are getting a fall this year. It's pretty great.
Yeah, but I was more grateful than anyone probably today. We just had beautiful weather today, and so actually my boys' classroom is closed down for 2 weeks. They had a COVID exposure, so my wife and I whipped out the calendars on the weekends and okay, which days can you take? Which days can I work from home? And today was my day, so I did an online continuing ed course while with the boys, and luckily it was beautiful weather. They were outside riding their bikes and scooters almost the entire day. So I was like, oh, thank goodness it wasn't cold and rainy like it could have been for early November here in Omaha.
I put a special weather tablet right up by the camera right up here. It's a little Amazon Fire that all it does is the weather now. It's great. It's 51 degrees. I have no idea what that is in Celsius. That would be a cool thing to put on the app. Like if I could see that in Celsius as well, so I could say that. But Gavin Campbell is with us tonight. Gavin is you're up in Toronto, right? Did I get that right? And
yep.
Gavin, welcome to Home Gadget Geeks.
Oh, thank you very much. It's great to be here after listening to you guys for so many years.
I appreciate that. And you came in, I reached out to all the Patreon supporters and said, hey, would you be interested in joining us? And a few, Eddie was on a while back. John joined us to talk about the e-bike. And you said yes. And I was like, cool, good to get to know you. Really, I haven't. You're a supporter I haven't spent a lot of time with, and so I'm just kind of glad that you said yes, and we get to spend time on the show. Gavin, tell us. We know you're in Toronto. You got to do the obligatory weather. So, how's the weather in Toronto?
I think we're about 10 degrees Celsius.
There you go.
That's equivalent, I think, to about 50. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, it's close to that, right? So it's getting cold. This weekend will probably be my last golfing weekend, before we start getting into the single digits. I'm going to be getting my last mow in. So, we're wrapping it up pretty much this weekend, I think.
Yeah. I look forward to that every year. Last weekend I mowed. I'm like, could this be the last mow? And then I was like, well, I use my lawnmower to also pick up leaves. And my trees have not fallen yet. So none of my leaves are on the ground. So I'm going to have to do probably one or two more. Which is great because I get to mow the lawn and get the leaves up at the same time. So probably one or two more. I think because it's not growing very fast. It's just the fact that it's growing just enough that there will be probably still one or two more.
Gavin, do you have a lawn that are you a lawn guy? Do you spend any time thinking about it, or are you just kind of like, nah?
Listen to you guys talk about it. I sit there looking at my lawn some days and I feel the pain because in the spring it's beautiful, and then it reaches that point when you just see that little piece of grass growing up that you're like, wait, this doesn't look like it belongs here. And then it just keeps spreading. And then, summer you regret it. And then fall it's beautiful again. So yeah, I try to take pride in my lawn, but it's a lot of work.
It is. And, you're kind of even with, if we think about latitude wise, you're kind of even with Boston. So even though we think of Toronto as Canada, you kind of have the same kind of weather as the Northeast, which is cold and snowy, but it's not like it's snowy all the time. And I'm sure you get there's some beautiful lakes up in that area as well. Right? You a lake guy? Do you get out, you get out on boats? You do any fishing, any of that kind of stuff?
Fishing every now and then when I can go, but I actually live right by a lake in Lake Ontario. So it's just at the end of the street. So you can go skating and stuff out there if you want. Fishing right there. There's a river right by the house. You just go fishing in. They stock salmon on it. So lots to do in the area. And for the record, Boston gets more snow than us.
Whoa, okay.
Right? Like when they were digging out, they were digging out their cars and we had no snow at that point. Right. So for some reason, the snow misses us. And it's not as bad as people think.
Well, no, you would think you're sandwiched there between all those lakes. You don't get that lake effect snow that like Buffalo gets and some of that kind of stuff.
I think we should, but it's for some reason it's been nice. This year's going to kill us probably.
As soon as you say that.
But Boston has had it pretty bad.
Oh, nice. Well, Gavin, what do you do? What's your day job? What kind of stuff? And you can tell us as much or as little as you want, but what brings you into the tech space?
Day-to-day job, I basically administer what they call Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. It's a endpoint management product. I work for a small company called Manulife, which owns John Hancock in the States. And this infrastructure basically manages all the computers globally for them. So, you know, SQL server, Windows servers, Linux servers. I deal with like all that fun stuff.
Man, it's a lot of work.
That sounds like if you would ask me what my dream job would have been in college, like that was like, oh, that would be amazing. Like I love just like I pretend that I have that at home, and I try and like, oh, what system can I deploy to manage the 3 computers in my house? I don't know, but it just seems cool. Like I don't know, that sounds like it would be so much fun. I think you said how many thousand of endpoints are you managing right now?
About 60,000 globally. So it is a nice job until you get the 3 o'clock in the morning calls or something like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that better than it used to be? I mean, has that kind of work gotten easier, harder, or is it just the same maybe over the last, 5 to 10 years?
You can do a lot more. It's a lot more powerful, but with all that, it's a lot more complicated now. Right. You start getting into Azure integration and stuff like that. Networking, it gets a lot more complicated. So but you could do so much more.
Yeah. I always like the hard part about that too is with 60,000 things, that means you've also got roughly that many people involved. And oftentimes, the error is between, what do they say, between the keyboard and yeah, whatever that phrase is, right? It's the person. So you have to deal with all these people who are probably also causing issues with that machine. You're like, no, just leave it alone. Just
no, end users are perfect. End users are perfect. They never
they're perfect. They never do anything.
Well, it's not their fault.
I drive my IT department nuts because I'm like, I could probably fix this. Right? I'm techie enough, and I bring it down. Like, why didn't you just bring it down before you messed it up? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think as you look ahead? As far as in your role and what you're doing, what kind of future stuff are you looking forward to? Stuff to make your job easier or better? You got anything on the horizon that you're looking forward to?
Just in the future, everything's moving to the cloud now. Right. So like where I manage servers now and everything's on-prem, we're migrating roles and stuff into the cloud, and Microsoft is our main vendor. They'll be updating and managing all the infrastructure in the cloud, and we just, run it from there. So that seems to be the future and where things are going, no more Active Directory type stuff. They're trying to get away from that. When they're introducing autopilot. So you know how you build a computer and you get that login screen, is this for work or school?
Yep.
So now they're working towards the whole, just send the user the machine, have them reset it, select work, log in with your work ID. And now it's going to connect to our networks and download all your applications and set up everything all for you at home. Right. So that's like the future.
And was that a big thing before COVID, or was that really okay once COVID came around? Like, oh, now we really need to kick that into gear with people all being from home.
COVID actually has been one of the fastest drivers of technology in the company. I find, like, as soon as everybody started working from home, we started trying to find ways of doing things remotely. Because you had a lot of restrictions with our VPNs and stuff like that. So, and keeping things secure. So COVID's driving a lot of that.
You're getting a lot of love in the chat, by the way. All of a sudden, we started talking about what you do for a living, and it was like everyone's like, "Hey!"
I saw that Intune or SCCM one. I'm like, I'm surprised someone actually knows what it is. But yeah, Intune and SCCM was the old name. They're calling it Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager now. So, but we still call it SCCM.
So which one are you?
I deal with both of those. Okay. Those are two technologies that work together.
Okay, got it.
Jeremy says autopilot was killing us recently. We weren't given rights to turn it off by our central IT and weren't admins on a new laptop. Great in theory, though, and that's the way it works, right? Is they roll, and Microsoft rolls these things out sometimes. And they say, I mean, their marketing is so slick, like this is gonna make your life so much better, and then 5 months later, it still doesn't work, and you're like, yeah, that wasn't. But they promised everybody all these things that just never really became a reality, and then they fix them a year later, but they never tell anybody they do. And that's the story. Gavin, you're Home Gadget Geeks avatar when it comes to, sysadmin working in a Windows environment, covering a lot of IT stuff. We're going to find out even more here as we kind of get to know you throughout the show, as far as why you fit the show. How long do you think, have you been listening since the very beginning? Did you come over from Home Server Show, or how long have you been listening?
Mike, when were you in university?
So you started listening when I was the co-host. Because before me,
okay.
No, I was listening before you actually.
Oh, before me. So I came on in 15, I believe. Right?
Okay, I was
Jim,
listening
isn't that
before
when we talked about that in 2015?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We used a 200 show 200 something is where you get in here, Mike. Early 200s.
It was before you because I was telling you I have my N54L server downstairs and I just booted it up because I wanted to install Unraid on another Unraid box on it. And I was like, these guys made me buy this. They convinced me to buy this.
We did. They did.
So that was a while ago.
Guilty as charged. Yeah, now Gen 8, Gen 9, Gen 10 on those boxes. I don't have a single one left. But good for you for still holding on to. I think I got rid of mine just a year or two ago. I held on to it for a long time. It just eventually didn't do anything. Like it was just kind of too slow for a lot of the things. I love the configuration and I love the drives in there, and I kind of wish I had it back now, but I don't. I sent it to the recycle, so you can't get those things. You just can't get those things back.
I'm not familiar with that one. Is that one? I mean, was that user replaceable in terms of motherboard and CPU and everything?
No, or was it kind of just almost all custom. Yeah.
Okay, kind of like a Drobo.
Had a 4-bay. Well, sort of. I mean, it was kind of in between. You could kind of do some custom configurations. We had users who Kevin Schoonover had a CNC cut a custom hard drive mount for it, so you could build some things for it, but you wouldn't put a industry standard motherboard in it. It had I think, Gavin, where the chips wasn't the motherboard or the CPU soldered onto that thing.
Like it was so tight in there that you can't just throw any memory in there. It has to be a certain height memory because you can't get things back together. It was a great little box though.
Yeah, it was a great, and like Joe says, it was a great Windows Home Server 2011 box. And we talked about those things for so long. All the meetups and all those things we talked about. They're a good little box. But it was, Mike, in that era, home servers, that was a thing, for folks to have, at least for guys like us, to have a home server. And so they made these little boxes. They were pretty cool. We talked to them a lot on Home Server Show. So Gavin, that kind of brings back the memories. I'm not going to lie. Big thanks to John Maddox last week, who joined us from Channels. It was kind of fun to catch up with that, and it got me kind of back into my channel setup. Gavin, do you do much with Channels? Have you've been using that? Maybe too much. I have some advanced information, but what's your relationship with Channels?
So my channels, I've been using it. I use it to record shows. Like sometimes there's a couple football games on. I can't watch them all at the same time, so I'll set one to record while I watch another one. And I've integrated. They have a Kode plugin, so I actually use it through Kode. I'm just waiting on them to add something to the plugin before I go full bore with the wife and say, "All right, the channels,
all right,"
because they got to add. I'm hoping they'll add like group support. I think they call it channel collections, but pulling it from like an M3U file so it shows up as groups in Kode. I've been talking to them about it. I think they're working on it. I don't know yet, but once they add that, it's perfect for me.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good little system. Mike, how'd it go last week? You can be honest. John's not listening.
Yeah, no. So I fired it back up, right? It was one of those Dockers that I had just turned off, but I had left all the config up in Unraid. So fired it up and kind of just talked to Hannah about it. Hannah's my wife, and she's like, do we need to switch? Do we need to? I'm like, Plex works great, and I know how to use it and everything. And she goes, what's the big advantage? And so we talked through, like we talked about last week, the whole kids sorting and everything, which I thought was a really cool way that my kids could utilize it. And I think we both just came to the conclusion, Plex works great, and our kids with their tablets are just so used to boom, boom, boom all around Disney Plus. They have just, their brains is so funny. We think of that as being a pain, jumping around. Oh, what's in what app? Their head just like, oh, Paw Patrol, and they just know what app to go to watch it. It just works for them. They've grown up with these things. So what I thought was an issue wasn't even as big of an issue as I thought. So we stuck with Plex. So as of right now, still with Plex, and a lot of the things we talked about with recordings, Jim, I know you had a lot of issues with Plex when it came to scheduling recordings and channel detection, commercial detection, things like that. For us, and I don't know if it's because I have it on Unraid with a lot of power on it, and everything's got an i7 in there, and really all the other stuff running on Unraid doesn't take much CPU. It has a 1060 graphics card in there. It works well. We don't really have too many complaints, and I've got got about 10 users total using that, and probably of those families too with a lot. So I feel like I would hear about it if we were having a lot more complaints with the recordings, because the most common thing for us is, even though you can't share the live recordings, is network television being recorded as a DVR. And a lot of the users that are all the family and friends that I have on my Plex server, that's a lot of what they're using. So no complaints so far from us. So yeah, we're sticking with Plex for now.
Okay. You know what I found is when I moved channels off of the NVIDIA Shield and moved it onto the Windows box, I haven't had any problems. And
it's almost like some co-host of yours told you that would probably be a good solution like a year ago. I was like, are you sure? Are you sure the Shield has enough power?
It's supposed to. It's supposed to be able to.
It is
supposed to be able to do it. But I think that was both my Plex and my channels problem. And so moving it on to a box. Gavin, what do you, so you're Kode, your front end's Kode, right? What do you run that on?
Well, I have all Windows boxes, so I've been investing in, like, I would have an old laptop on one of my TVs actually bolted to the back of it, but little Lenovo machines, they have the micro machines running Windows 10, and I have it on there. And Kode's just really my front end. My back end is I run Emby. So Emby manages the profiles and everything like that, and Kode displays it to the users. And we log in with our own account. So when my wife logs in, just her show up. When I log in, just my show up. So it's kind of a clean interface.
I've got it on that, because Emby and Plex have always been, just just pretty much the same to me, right? They do a lot of things. They both have maybe some niches that they do better in than the other. Did you ever try Plex, or have you always just gone down the Emby route? Because I think I tried Emby one time. I was like, well, this is good, but I didn't see any advantage, I would say. But I think a lot of people love Emby. Like, Emby users are very passionate that like this is the right, platform for me to run all this stuff on.
And I liked Emby because when I went to their forums and I would post a question, developers were actually responding to you and working with you. So when you have a feature or something you wanted to work, they have a discussion with you saying, well, we've implemented it this way, but what can we do to make it better? And you read a lot of that, and that I felt was not there with Plex.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that, and like Plex, for some reason, I don't know, my legal hat comes on here a little bit, and I thought they started going down this path of like their own content that now you have access to, and that just has been something that I just do not see any value in, and it honestly confuses every single user, because it pops into your main stuff, and then where are you watching that from, and why is all this stuff showing? I don't even like these shows. Like, this is nothing I would want. And I think it's kind of so they can have a wink, wink, like, no, like our service is so that we can have all this content for our people. But, has Emby done that at all? Have they come out with, hey, now we have a whole library of shows and movies you can watch?
No, actually, Emby, they just manage it, and that's good.
I wish Plex wouldn't have done it. Yeah,
and again, I don't use their applications as their front end. I use Kode, so it's just Kode's it's a plugin that syncs the databases back and forth. So I would bypass all of that, right? Anyways, if they did.
So Kode, does Emby have its own front end that you could use?
Yes.
Okay. So what's the benefit of using Kode versus Emby then?
I prefer Kode because I'm a big Harmony user, so I can do a lot more with it. The keyboard support is so much nicer, I had the live TV coming from another source like Channels instead, right? Where I can do some other things. Then there's game integration. A lot of the stuff they've added though over the years, because I've been doing this for so long, so they didn't have game integration. So I used to play old NES games like Super Mario Brothers or Tetris, like through my Kode. Yeah. So I just prefer the Kode interface, and it's familiar, and it's something I standardized through the whole house.
Okay. And none of that's all running on Windows, not on Unraid, huh?
Unraid is my home server in the basement that I have set up, and it has many Dockers on there running everything. So my Emby server is actually a Docker on there, and I have certain Dockers that will clean up the server of all our watch content, delete them all, stuff like that.
Got it. I knew Unraid was going to come in there at some point. I think
I'm a big Unraid user. I'm big.
Oh yeah, that's something I want to dive into deeper here in a little bit.
I was going to say, I think I'm going to go to the bathroom. You guys can talk. I'll be back in about 20. I'll be back in
nerd out on Unraid for a long time.
20 minutes. Well, I get every time we talk about Plex or we talk about channels, I get the Kode, there's some folks who come in and talk about that. And so it is one I tried. I'm trying to remember. I think I set up a Linux box for some reason and was messing around with that. And I just never, I don't know. It never landed for me. It works for you. You kind of like tinkering with it. You're kind of in that development community. I think that's the perfect spot for it. Right. I mean, I think if you're thinking, you're right, Plex kind of comes at it from, we're going to tell you what you want. And then I kind of learned last week, John over at Channels, they're small, they're agile, they're kind of listening too. They're like, well, I didn't think of it that way, but maybe I should have. Gavin, did you get a chance to hear John from last week?
Oh yeah, I've actually had Channels before that show. Yeah. So I've been using it for a while, and I actually posted the show up in their forums because somebody was asking about Android support, and they were on a rant about it, and I said, hey, listen to the show because he goes into it on the show. Nice. Right? So I posted the link to the show, and then I've been talking with developers about a feature I'm looking for, but cool. It's great over there.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, thanks for doing that.
It's amazing how the community can really drive what products you use, right? Unraid is another one of those for me that I just feel like the Unraid community, their forums, even just if you look at like the Docker support forum that they have for it and just their community forums, I feel like our number one, what I like about them is not very toxic, really hard to find community forums that don't get a little bit toxic or judgy, or, when you ask a question, you don't get just berated. That's one thing I love about the Unraid. So if those environments have the same sort of community support, I mean, it makes all the difference.
Agree. Well, hey, let's just talk about Unraid. You sent me, Gavin, in an email all the things that you do. So tell me, let's start with hardware. What are you using? I mean, I think your Unraid environment is pretty important to you. So it sounds like you do a lot on it. What are you running it
on? Actually, I do a bit too much on it now. My machine's actually an older machine. It's probably over 5 years old. It's an old i5, and I'm now starting to hit that limit where the CPU is constantly running at a lot because I have a lot of Dockers on there. I have a lot of, all my backups going on there. And so that's why I was building a second Unraid server. So the second Unraid server is a backup server now. So all my computers back up to that server on a schedule and dump an image in there that I can restore at any time, right?
Okay, so we've got to dive into deep there, though. People are going to love all the nitty-gritty details. So what are you using on the desktops or laptops to back up? And then, what are you running on the server to capture those?
Okay, this is maybe a little complicated, but I think you could do this through the user interface. But the Windows 10 built-in backup software, it's actually, if you go into settings, it actually says it's for Windows 7.
Really?
But it still works really great. And the reason I wrote scripts that will automate it through the command line. So the command wbadmin.exe, I think, and then you can automate it through that, and then I can deploy it to all my machines, etc. But I use that, and the main reason why is because restoring a machine is so easy. Your machine, if you can get your machine into what's it called, not safe mode, but where it says the troubleshooting mode and stuff like that, you can actually do the restore from there. Say restore from a network share, point to the network share, it pulls it back. It's like so easy, right? I don't have to find a USB, unless the machine's dead, right? But I've just been using that. I used to use other tools to back up, but all the proprietary formats and stuff like that, it's like when you actually did a restore, I was like, I got to find the restore software and then please work, or the drive's not the same size, or, something like the Windows just works.
Okay, that's good. Well, because that's what I've been looking for is I got really lazy and lax with backups. And mainly because for me, a nuke and pave, if it ever crashes, is sometimes kind of like a blessing in disguise. So I'm like, I probably need to nuke that and pave it anyway. And with like everything for me is in OneDrive, right? All my documents wise, applications, I'm gonna have to re-download them. But again, another blessing in disguise for me because the ones I use the most are pretty easy to get back up and running, right? Your Adobe, your Chrome, so much stuff is done in your web browser now that I really don't have many of those apps. So I think with a lot of this stuff, I've gotten lazy just out of like I haven't needed to, and I've not lost a computer, but I've had to redo a computer a few times. It's just like, oh, that actually wasn't as bad as I thought. But if I could just restore some of the main settings and some of those stuff, I mean, that's really what I need. Because that's the biggest pain for me is you go back and, what did I have that set to and all that. So if I could have a restore point, and if it's that easy, I might give that a shot. and just start running that over to my Unraid server. So
Yeah,
you just have a share over in your Unraid server, and you just point it there and save them there.
Okay. And I had some requirements. I wanted to do bare metal restores, or, I wanted to do image backups. I didn't want to do file backups. I wanted image backups. I wanted to be able to do incremental, so I'm not backing up the whole drive every night, right? That type of thing. And this tool did it all. I saw Veeam mentioned. Veeam I actually used before. It was giving me some troubles because I had it running in a Docker. I think the server was running in a Docker, and it's just, after a while, I think the endpoint was crashing on my machine or giving me some CPU spikes or something. And I just said, all right, let me find something else.
Wow, I'm super impressed that you're using like the legacy Windows backup to make it work. I mean, that's crazy. But good for you. How many PCs or how many things are you having to back up in your network, do you think?
I have about 8 computers that I back up to the thing, and that includes all my Kode boxes and stuff like that too, right? So they back up all on a schedule. I have a script that runs and tells me if any of them failed and didn't back up in the last 7 days, then I can check it and something's up. And then my Unraid server I have backed up to Crash Plan. So
wow,
I'm still
that's a blast from the past. Yeah, you didn't ditch them, huh?
I couldn't for some reason. When I started looking at other products and their restore policies and stuff like that, I just ended up just staying with Crash Plan, mainly because, again, it runs as a Docker on my Unraid. They offered that, so I was like, oh great, like just runs on my Unraid and backs up Unraid.
Right. No, right on. It's I moved away from image backups. I'd kind of just gone like Mike. I just kind of gone to files. So I throw them out on this Moro data box that I have, and that goes to Backblaze B2. Couldn't be any easier for me. It was much easier to understand at the file level. I need to get a file back because I'm like Mike. I just nuke it and start over. It's like I tried doing image backups, and it was very, very frustrating. To your point, using Acronis or all the other stuff, right? That all these backup agents never just seemed to work for me. I'd go to reinstall it, and it'd be like, oh, there's this. And you're like, okay, what? Like, why can't, and I end up nuking it anyways, and I'd open up that backup to pull files out. I'm like, why am I not just backing up files? So I too have kind of switched to just worrying kind of about having individual files backed up. I don't, with all the podcast stuff, I have 3 or 4 terabytes of stuff. So it's big enough that I can't put it on a OneDrive or some of those, some of those kinds of features. What else, Gavin? What else? Okay. So backup's important to you. This is a blast from our home server show days, blast from the past. Good to see somebody still doing that. What else from a Unraid standpoint? What else are you running? What's kind of like second most important to you?
Well, I have a VM running on there, so I use a Windows 10 machine to run scripts and stuff that I can't run in a Docker or anything like that. And if you're looking to run Windows 10, the latest release candidate of Unraid, I think it was released yesterday, adds Windows 11 support. In there, so you can load an Windows 11 machine, and they also have a Raspberry Pi image that they added in that's really cool because I don't have a Raspberry Pi, but I'm always hearing people talk about it. So it's pretty cool that they added that. But I made a number of Dockers that do automatic things, right? It's just so easy to do. So like with my Emby server, if the wife watches a show and it's a show we collectively watch, so if she watched it and then I have it marked as watched, then it's considered fully watched, it will clean it up. That's a Docker that automatically runs every day to clean up old shows. Like a YouTube, I wrote a script to do YouTube downloads. So if I see a YouTube video but I don't want to watch it now, I just add it to my watch later. It automatically downloads it, adds it to my Emby, and it shows up on all my TVs, and I watch it in there. Again, I'm big on automation, right? So everything is with as little energy as possible. Once I get it going, it just runs in the background and keeps going easily like that.
So does it watch that YouTube script, and after you've watched it, does it delete it?
Actually, what it does is it will log it. It uses my credentials and it downloads my subscription. So if I subscribe to your channel, it downloads all the newest ones, and then it also downloads my watch later list and marks them as watched and marks them as downloaded, so it doesn't download it again. And then after I've watched it, it then cleans it off my Emby server automatically.
And are these all scripts that you've written yourself?
In Docker, yeah. I took some time. I learned Docker. I created my own Dockers. It's a very powerful tool.
I'm envious of your skills. There are so many things I would love to do like that. And I sit down, I'm like, I have no idea how to accomplish that. Like zero, not even the slightest clue. Probably watch some YouTube videos and maybe get started, maybe learn some basics and get going. But man, yeah, what a cool skill to have. Just because, like you said, if you love automation, a lot of that stuff you got to custom do yourself.
Yes. Yeah, I do a lot of home automation stuff. I have a lot of Dockers on there that do various stuff. And sometimes I'll take someone's Docker and it either has too many features or something. I just want a little piece of that Docker. So I'll download it, modify it, take out all the other stuff I don't want, and then make my own one out of that using just their code. So I didn't have to recreate it from scratch. It's powerful.
Fantastic. You've got requests for your scripts in chat already. Justin Simmons says, yes, please share that script. I don't know if he's referencing the YouTube one or which one, one of the many you have going there.
I don't mind sharing. I just don't want to become support for them.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That's always 100%. The danger, right? That's always the danger in those is you're like, no, I don't want to. Don't ask me why they don't work in your environment. That gets, kind of hard to. You're also a Habitat guy, and you've heard us talk about Home Assistant. Have you used both? You just sticking with Habitat? Talk about a little bit about how you're using Habitat.
So I originally had SmartThings. I kind of pushed that to the limit and got fed up of that. Moved to Habitat after that. I've tried Home Assistant. I've loaded it up in a Docker. I've logged into it, and I tried to do some simple things in it. I just got lost. I was like, you know what? It feels like I have to learn a whole new, coding language and everything. So I didn't even bother. I'm a big Habitat user.
Yeah, you kind of do. Home Assistant's one of those you got to kind of sit down and devote, a few hours to, just because it's unique, right? It's something completely different than all their offerings, especially how it's set up.
Well, but if you're going to use it simply, like I found getting the Ring integrations working, some of the smart lights, the Hue stuff inside Home Assistant, pretty easy. I wasn't trying to. Are you with Habitat? Are you actually scripting things out, Gavin? Are you? Do you get that? You building anything for that?
Yeah. So in the Habitat world, I've basically written all my own drivers, all my own apps, everything. I basically recreated everything on my own. It's a very powerful little box. Yeah. And I've just recreated. And the main reason why is because I found out community apps. They're nice that somebody else developed them and everything, but then, when something breaks, getting support sometimes is tough. Sometimes they have too many features on it, or they do something in a way that's inefficient. And when you got as much going on my hub as I do, I need to know every little thing going on that hub, because polling devices adds extra, cycles, CPU cycles. So I don't want to poll for a status of a device every 5 seconds. Yeah. Right. Whereas some things like the MyQ integration was doing things like that. Right. So I've rewritten all my own stuff. So that's how I know it pretty well. To do what I need to do.
Mm-hmm. It made me realize I had my Microsoft Surface down here, and I used it as a home. It was kind of my home automation hub. And because it's a touch screen, then I had Home Assistant that screen up 24/7, and I could turn lights on and off. And then Sammy she had to send her school laptop back. So she's like, Dad, can I borrow your Surface for a while? Well, sure. So I said, and then I just realized, I haven't looked at the dashboard since I gave her the laptop, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. So I'm like, I'm going to have to bring that up and watch it again. So what do you think what's your favorite in Habitat or with home automation? What do you think either is your favorite or you use the most of?
In terms of like the hardware or devices?
Just even whatever in the space. Like, what do you think you couldn't live without? If it goes down, you're like, I'm screwed.
The whole thing, if it goes down, it's like I'm screwed. But no,
what do you use
when I integrated everything, I always make sure I have a manual way. So my switches they work manually or they work automated, right? That was one of my rules, is you have to still be able to do things manually, because if the hub dies for whatever reason, we want to still be able to turn on the light, right? I I do so much. I can't really pick a favorite. The hub is my favorite, right? And I guess with the wife, it's the she really likes the Alexa integration that I put in there for her, because every time she talks to Alexa to do something, it's like a little piece of me inside just really appreciates it.
Mm-hmm.
I agree on the manual side of things. I've been really enjoying those TP-Link Casa switches, right? Because like you said, you got the physical switch plus automated. I've been running into issues too where certain automations that I don't think how they'll affect everyone, I'll need to go in and turn automations off. For example, we have a kind of a powder room guest bathroom that's like right down the hall from my son's room, and he's kind of getting that age where he's like kind of getting a little scared of the dark. He's like, can we leave that on? And I have that one set too, because they are notorious for going in there, leaving the bathroom light on and coming out. So I just have it turn off after 10 minutes. And so my wife's like, he wants that to stay on all night. I'm like, oh yeah, wait, where's that automation? First of all, okay, Home Assistant, go in and got to turn it off. So some of those, but I agree with the switches being manual, especially like when my in-laws come into town. They don't do the smart house thing. They're not used to that. So they need that physical switch when they come over. If I could have those, I think if I ever build a new house, it's going to be all the switches are going to be smart switches, but still have a manual switch, but being able to control wirelessly as well.
The light in my garage I've set up using the Amazon Assistant. And the other day I went out there, didn't come on. And I was like, go figure. It's one of those kinds of things. I have to set this thing back up, whatever. So I did nothing. And then the other day it just started working again. Like, I was like, really? Like, okay, well, I'm not going to try and figure it. It's working now. And it really is just, I have a motion sensor. I have one of those devices that has the speaker and the microphone on it. You can do voice commands through it. And that's got a little sensor. So when it senses movement, it turns a light on. It's not really complicated, right? But when it doesn't work, you're in the dark. It always, now I got to find the switch. Fortunately, I've put one of those light switches that has a light in it. It's got it illuminates so you can find it in the dark. But it is we did a whole show on how home automation can be frustrating because, it's still not completely great yet.
Yeah, I found a good solution to that is Zigbee or Z-Wave, and then making sure you have good signal connections between your hubs and your devices. Once I switched over to using I can't remember which one I used. I think it's Zigbee. All Zigbee motion sensors, and I got that center spot that actually plugs into my Unraid server into Home Assistant. I got that in a spot that everything seemed to have good reception. All my issues seemed to go away. I think that's just this game of cat and mouse of making sure you do get good signal to all those, and then just not relying on Wi-Fi. For some reason, for me, Wi-Fi still, there's a lag component to it, and it's just a little not as reliable for me as Zigbee has been. I say that, and I just talked up the Casa Smart switches, which are all Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's all right.
But I don't have too many issues with those. But my motion sensors, I have one in the laundry room and then one in that bathroom we talked about. So right as you walk in, the light is, I've been shocked how fast that light turns on, how responsive it is every time.
Justin in the YouTube chat says that he says, don't automate the light, automate the switch. Color changing is the only thing that should be kind of on the light. I think that's a good. John said, I stopped immediately troubleshooting tech problems, like waiting a couple hours or a day. They come back on many times. And this has been my experience too. Like, I'll get to it later, and then sometimes it fixes itself, especially with the Amazon stuff.
Yes.
I find sometimes it just quits working for whatever reason, and then it'll start working again. Sometimes he does a reboot. Do you have a nemesis, Gavin, in your tech setup there at home? Is there anything that you work with that you're like, I just wish I could get rid of this? Maybe you have already, but anything like that in your network where you're just like, I'm going to kill this thing as fast as I possibly can?
Right now, and this will probably shock you, right now it's my Eero setup.
Oh, really?
Right?
Really? Why? Tell me about
Eero was working perfectly fine for a while, for years. And then about 2 or 3 months ago, they introduced a new update, 6.4.0. And ever since that update, it has been causing a number of issues with my Harmony hubs dropping off. So, you're trying to adjust the volume and it doesn't work anymore, or stuff like that. People have talked, I've had smart devices dropping off and coming back on. In the forums, there's a lot of people complaining about it. They've since released a 6.5 update to that. It didn't help. A 6.51 brought back my air printer, but I'm still having my Harmony hubs and various devices jumping on and off. I've been working with support, and I feel like I'm getting nowhere at this point with them. I'm now starting to look at what are other options out there, because we've gotten to the point where I've reduced my network down to just Eero. Before I had a PFSense router going through the Eero. So I got rid of all that. I've simplified my network as much as I can, and they're still blaming it on something. I'm saying it can't be that. It's been working perfectly until 6.4. It doesn't make sense where they're looking at. But I'm just working with them to see if they come up with something. The latest thing they're saying, it's my ISP dropping, and I would run ping and watch everything drop off and come back on, and it's still up. It's not the ISP. So I think they're not sure at this point. People in the forums aren't sure at this point. So that's the one thing driving me nuts.
Well, does Harmony Hub even connect out to a cloud service? Isn't that, or is it all local?
It does a bit of both. So my integration with it from Habitat is all local. But it does do some connectivity out to the cloud to get the commands and to sync and stuff like that.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, they're always pointing the finger at each other, right? It's always
so complicated.
Yeah.
It's so complicated. And the more vendors we get, which is good, you get innovation that way, but the more vendors you get, of course, the more confusion it causes. John says turning on all the Christmas lights at once with the Amazon device was a real winner for my wife. She used to go to 6 windows to plug in candles, and that here's, and maybe you guys will sympathize with me. Here's where this doesn't, the Christmas tree every year. So I think, do I have an extra plug, Wi-Fi plug hanging around? No. All right, so I order one. And then I plug in the tree. We use it for a month, right? And then I unplug it. And then I can't let that thing sit around for, like, it can't just sit. So I deploy it somewhere else, right? And then the very next year, you're like, what did I do? Oh, yeah, it's running a light that I've become very dependent on. So I got to go buy another one. Here's the problem. The one that you bought last year, they don't sell those anymore. You got to get a different one, right? And it uses a different app, or the app, you go to log into the app from the one that you bought from last year, and that app's been discontinued. And you're like, okay, how do it's still working with the A-Lady, but you're like, how do I do it? So you guys are shaking your head. You know what I'm talking about. Right?
I'm so glad I'm not the only one that deals with this, because every year I pull out the Christmas tree, I'm like, oh yeah, I went and put that on something else, and it's already been, and then it's gotten even worse now that I've gotten in really deep into Home Assistant, because now that thing is not just tied into an app, it's tied into Home Assistant, it's automated, there's all these things tied to it. I'm not switching that, so I'm always ordering another one. I've run into the same exact thing every year. Yeah, I think this year, you just reminded me, I should probably put that order in on Amazon now.
Yeah, no, right
get
on.
The smart, I'm trying to remember how many I needed. I think I only do 3. I don't need now I need 6. That's a power user for Christmas stuff. I think I need about 3 to get all my stuff done.
Well, it probably pays just to buy a 3-pack. Anyway,
I think so.
Right?
Yeah, I'll go with the TP-Link Casa stuff, because all my smart, my switches in the wall and my outlets are now. I'm kind of solidifying those on TP-Link Casa.
That's where that's kind of where I'm too. Gavin, during the holidays, you guys do anything special with lighting or outdoor stuff? Do you get festive at all during this season?
Oh yeah, the lighting goes up, the trees go up and everything like that. And of course I automate it so that the tree lights come on at a certain time and go off at a certain time. Yeah. But I don't move my switches around like you guys do. So when my plug is there and we're done with the Christmas tree, I leave the plug there, because it's also my Zigbee router too. So if I took that plug out, other things stop working. So I leave it there and don't redeploy it.
Oh, that's a good point. I do have a Zigbee router plug that's just not being used right. It's plugged in as a hub, but nothing's plugged into it over in the corner. There we go. You saved me one. I'm gonna go move that over.
Look at that. He'll have it done before the show's over somehow.
He'll move it by next week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's one. I have to I like that idea of just leaving it. So maybe I need to think about buying the plugs, because I kind of buy those long ones. And they've got smaller round ones now that aren't so bulky. They just don't look like, hey, I'm a smart plug, right? And maybe I need to get some of the smaller ones and to use your methodology. Just leave them there. Like but that's hard for me because then there's nothing plugged into it. Right. And I'm thinking I could be using this somewhere else. It's that stupid maximizer in me. But so you don't struggle with that at all. Huh? You're okay just to leave it. All right.
I have enough extra plugs sitting around that one's not bothering me. Right.
Yeah.
And then the fact that I know it's actually for the Zigbee mesh as well makes it even better.
Yeah. Well, John says all my plugs are labeled for each room, which I think is probably a good idea. Kind of labels, hey, this plug is this room. They go away with the Christmas lights. And then Brian says I bought a bunch of extra smart plugs just for the month of December. I can't have extra. That doesn't work for me. Like I'm not a good extra guy. If I got it, I want to use it. This is the problem with my computers. I can't just have extra computing power around. If I've got a PC, it's got to be doing something, right?
Yeah.
And I'm terrible about that. It's why crypto has been so good for me in a lot of ways, because whatever extra power I've had or extra hard drive space I've had, I deploy it to crypto. Gavin, have you any other, when we going back to your Unraid for a second, any other, as we think about, this community, anything that you're using on your box, application wise, automation wise, that you think would fit the community well, that you're doing on Unraid?
Well, one thing, running Dockers, if you haven't played with Dockers, it's very powerful, right? Like it makes things simple. So on my Unraid, I run a whole bunch of Dockers, as I said. Hoobs is one of them, which is it allows me to integrate Habitat with Apple HomeKit, right? So I have that as a Docker on there, so I can use Siri to control whatever, as well as the A Lady to control whatever I want, right? I have a LAN presence Docker. That one is how I detect network presence of our devices. I went a little complicated it took me a while to perfect that one and figure it out, because a lot of people think you could just ping the phones and you'll know if it's on or off, but they don't realize that like iPhones will stop responding after a certain amount of time. So when they're sleeping, right, they go into sleep mode, and that causes a problem because now all of a sudden it thinks you left home or something like that, right? But I wrote a Docker that uses something called ARPing, which the phones always respond to until it's off the network. And then within I could reach the end of my street when I'm off the network, and then all of a sudden it says, oh, you're not home anymore. And then my whole system arms itself, right? And then as soon as I drive into the driveway, it picks us up and it says, oh, someone's home, disarm, welcome home, you're good, right? So those are just some of the Dockers. I have like a Mosquito Docker running, which is MQTT server, because some things like to use that. I have a Docker to control my Roomba running on it. Like there's probably like 50 Dockers on here or something like that.
Now, how many of these came stock from community applications, and how many are custom, either written by you or modified by you?
There's a lot of stock ones, actually.
Okay.
It's more the custom ones, or the ones that never worked properly and I had to get it working for some reason. But like the stock ones, like the Crash Plan, the Dropbox, the Paperless, those are all stock. Those are too complicated.
Use Crusader at all? Moving files around, deleting files on the server pretty easily?
No, if I gotta move files, I just jump to the shell and I just use was it Midnight Commander or whatever from the shell. I'm a shell guy, so I'll go right to the shell and I'll just do it from there.
Gosh, I wish I was. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah, for me, so I got Crusader for that, and then Radar and Sonar for kind of managing movies and TV shows, and then SAB NZB, NZB guy. Cloudberry backup, and then I use these two Cloudflare DDNS Dockers for essentially going out and telling a URL what my IP address is locally, which works out really well because I use Cloudflare for pretty much everything now.
Same here. Yep.
Even because I had gone through, especially for your SSL certificates, I kind of went to, now I don't know all the IT specific jargon, but essentially the certificate is with Cloudflare. I don't use what's the free one? What's the major SSL certificate provider? Anyway,
it's integrated into other things. I know
it's integrated into everything.
Yeah.
Let's Encrypt. Yeah. It's Let's Encrypt.
Yes.
So I stopped using Let's Encrypt, went over to Cloudflare. So using that, NGINX proxy manager, and then Emby, which is really cool, kind of a front end web GUI for requesting movies and stuff like that. And then PHP, my admin, Plex, Tatuli, Trex Miner for that 1060 that's in there. Might as well mine. My Unify controller runs on there, and then Vault Warden for password manager. So, which is actually, I'm kind of phasing that out a little bit, kind of going back to LastPass for some people, using Vault Warden for some others. So that's all. I've kind of pared mine down. I don't know, you probably heard the episode where I was kind of talking about not doing as much self-hosting anymore. So that has really been, I was kind of counting, I'm like, wow, where did all my Dockers go? I didn't realize how much I've slimmed those down. And then a VM, I run a VM for Home Assistant instead of having it in the Docker. You just kind of get some more features running that one in a VM.
Yeah, and I can even suggest like there's one called Prowler with 2 R's. Look up that one for managing the NZB sources and stuff like that, the searches and stuff like that. You might like that one. Okay. And then with your radar and your sonar, there's ones called Radar SMA and Sonar SMA. And what those integrate is something that auto converts your videos to a format that you want. So every video you put in there, it will then convert it into the format you want, the resolution you want, perfectly how you want it. So they're all the same, right?
Oh, now that's a thing of beauty.
So I have more Dockers like that. You've touched on a lot of the ones you mentioned. I have, or I've been playing with, but there's more like my brother's scanner for my printer scanner, so I can just go to my printer, it scans the document, sends it to the Docker converts it, does everything, and then puts it in a folder that gets picked up by Paperless and then add to my paper collection that's indexed and everything like that, right? So again, automation.
What I love about your Unraid is there's a lot of automation focus and a lot of things that you like. I feel like mine is kind of like underwear. It's like unmentionables. You can't really talk about the Dockers that I have on my Unraid server, right? They're kind of just things you don't want to talk about.
I have some of those.
Right, exactly. You have some Dockers like I probably ran through too many that I shouldn't. But whatever I use them for, I don't know. But they're I love that your set is very unique to you. That you've customized a lot of them, you've written a lot of them, and again, all based around automation. You have me thinking about more use cases for Docker. I think my use case has been very high level, right? I go to community applications. If it's not there, I haven't put the time in to think about how to get something done. But there are some things that you've mentioned, like the YouTube example was a perfect example of something that would be a very useful script, right?
So if you ever go to community applications and you don't see something in there, right? Click on the search on GitHub link, right? And get the Docker from GitHub, because you'll find or not GitHub, it would be Docker Hub. Sorry, there will be a lot more Dockers on there. The only difference is you'll kind of have to figure out all the configuration parameters and put them in manually.
Right.
But they're there. The Dockers are there. So make sure. And if you get the new community apps, they actually took that link out, so they'll make it a little more difficult. You'll have to look up how to do it now in the newer version of community apps.
Okay. I will take a look.
Gavin, you automate your pool as well? You've got some pool automation?
A little bit, and mainly because it's expensive. When you start looking at real pool automation, it gets expensive, or it's US based only. I can't really get it in Canada. But for now, I've automated the pool pump itself. So just an outdoor
swimming pool here. I'm thinking like pool of drives. I'm thinking like I didn't know where. Okay, swimming pool.
Swimming pool. Sorry,
I'm on the same wavelength now. I missed that somehow.
Right now, it's just the pool pump that I automate, and that was one of the first things I automated, to be honest, because it started as an argument. It was 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning, and we were arguing who's going to turn off the pool pump. Right. So I said, you know what? I'm going to automate. That was one of the first things I automated. Put a switch on there. Now it turns off, at night and back on in the morning, that type of thing for how many hours I want. And then the second thing I automate is just the temperature. And that was the second argument we had was, oh, what's the temperature in the pool? You go check. No, you go check. Now we could just ask the A lady, what's the temperature in the pool? And she'll actually tell us.
What do you use for how do you make that work? What's the sensor, and then how does it get to
that one was a bit of a pain in the butt now, because it's an old Fibaro sensor that allowed the installation of external temperature probe.
Okay.
Right. And then I just had to write the driver to incorporate all that stuff. And I would put that in my skimmer box and it worked good, but I can't get that sensor anymore. They don't sell it anymore.
Oh.
So if that ever breaks,
I just had to write the driver. I just had to write the driver.
Yeah.
No big deal. Just knock that out. It took me 10 minutes. No big deal.
Yeah. Actually, I've standardized it now. It's not that bad to write these drivers for Z-Wave devices.
Well, I think once you know the language and you understand what you're doing, it kind of makes sense, right? You get in there. They start a lot of the same things are utilized over and over again. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about my my meter, which does a really good job of measuring temperature, but they should have one of those for the pool.
Yeah,
right.
There's companies that do, and they do a lot more. It's a little, I can't remember the exact name of it, but you throw it in the pool and it will measure pH and all that stuff and temperature and everything. It goes up to their cloud service. It costs so much per month, or you have to get the refills and they don't ship to Canada. Like so there's out there, but it's and they trap you. Yeah, every time I see that,
you guys get screwed all the time.
Hey, we just got Wise. Wise just opened Canada's store yesterday, I think it was. So a lot of people stop complaining about that now.
I think running water and flush toilets have just made it to Canada. Sometimes you're like, come on, get there. But
is Ubiquity gear popular up there? You were talking about how your Eero stuff, and I've fallen in love more and more. I install it for other people. I do it at my own place. The Unify controller, man, I control like 3 or 4 different sites all from one. It's just been rock solid for me. I rarely ever have issues. Is that big in Canada or no?
I was looking at that. One of the problems now is because of the chip shortage, it's hard to get a lot of things, I'm finding.
Yeah, you're probably
so when I start looking at the Ubiquity stuff, it's like, oh, not in stock. And I'm on I talk with the guys from HomeTech.fm, and they constantly are griping about how it's hard to get anything nowadays. It's becoming difficult because of this. So I want to switch, but also Eero is such a big investment. It's not cheap to switch just over to Ubiquity. I'm looking at like $600 or more, right? So I really got to reach that point where I'm like, all right, I'm fed up now. I'm going to drop the $600 and just switch.
I went with just their APs. So I run pfSense on an old Dell Optiplex box as my router, which is just pfSense I love. It's just rock solid. Never have to reboot that thing. I have a TP-Link. I just got this one. We talked about my switch woes a few weeks back. I got a new TP-Link PoE managed switch. It's just an 8-port, but that's enough that I can split out into my other sub switches, other TP-Link switches. And then I just grabbed 2 of the Ubiquity APs, and each of them were only about $100, I would say. I think I actually got them for like 80 at the time. The AC Pros is what I grabbed, and that combo for me has worked pretty well. And so, because I would love to have the whole line so that I can see all the data, especially on the switch side. But you're right, those switches are insanely expensive. So I just went the other route, and it's worked out pretty well, to be honest. I have a few of my friends who I manage theirs, and I do, just for simplicity's sake, I get them the router. If they need a smart switch, I'll get it for them. Most of them don't, but Unify router, some access points, however many they need. And then when I log into my Unify control, I love that I can just see their whole network. I can see where all the data is going, track it all. From a remote management standpoint, it couldn't be easier. I love that aspect of it. They built a pretty good ecosystem.
How come you're not managing my network at this point? Like, you talked about doing this for friends. I thought it was your friend.
Why? You know why? I did it for one of the executives at our company, and whenever we're on a Zoom call, and if his Zoom hitches just a little bit, he just says, Uyghur, what's going on with my network? He's joking, of course, because it's internet. But I don't want to be on the podcast and you being like, why is my internet bad? Because I'm going to point at Cox. I'm going to do what Eero does. I'm going to be like, it's Cox's fault.
Me too.
That's what I would do.
Right. In pre-show, Mike, you and I were talking and my video started skipping and I got the meter that shows up. You guys can't see it, but for me, right here on the video, I get this little bandwidth meter that pops up on StreamYard. And that just turns me into a raging, like, now I have so much PTSD from that experience that I'm just like, oh. And listen, I am this close to pulling the trigger with T-Mobile and going, it's $50. I should at least try to switch over to their home, it's really cellular stuff. But So I don't know.
Is it month to month for them for the home service?
You can turn it in anytime. Yeah, there's no cancellation fee. I think I'm gonna. Yeah. I just need some time because you got to start. You know how it is. You got to switch all. It's never as easy as like, well, I'm going to unplug this one and plug it back in. Something inevitably goes wrong. Gavin, in your setup, like you got so much equipment that's tied to other equipment that is dependent on other equipment. Do you ever have that cascading failure where something fails and it causes something else to fail and something else to fail?
Yeah, I would have that. But because I understand the links of everything, that troubleshooting it, I usually knows exactly where it's failing, right? Like my Unraid froze the other day and, things stopped working. I was like, oh no, is this the dreaded moment of, my Unraid died and I'm gonna, the wives can't watch TV or something like that. Right. You fear that day, right? And I'm like, is my backup plan going to be tested right about now, right? And then I rebooted, it came up safe, and I was like, oh, thank God. I think it was just because it's running at like 80% CPU, like constantly. That's now I'm starting to offload some of the Dockers onto another box, to clean it up.
Do you ever get with equipment being what it is now, especially new stuff? Are you able in your job or through it to get additional equipment refreshes? Because we're all equipment hoarders, right? We all. Do you have a stash or a place that you can get equipment from if you can't get it new?
No. I'm a big guy I look at like Facebook Marketplace. I like getting used equipment, right? Because people sometimes don't know what they have. And I got old i7s off there for $200, and I'm like, awesome. I could do so much with this that another person doesn't know they can do, right?
Yeah.
So I do get a lot of that. And my Habitat, because I'm so dependent on that, I actually sign up. They have like a Habitat program that if it ever dies, they ship you a new one, and it backs up to the cloud and everything. So they get the new one, you restore it from the cloud. You're good. So I'm in part of that program too.
Maybe I should make you my network administrator. That would be that'd be a whole lot. That'd be a whole lot better. Sounds like you got your act together. I just, this stuff goes down, and I'm just like, well, I'll fix it Thursday.
I always be proactive with everything, especially with home automation. One of the problems I hear a lot is people are just like, I walked into the garage and that sensor is no longer sensing, and then I realized the battery is dead, and and it never replaced. Well, I have apps on my Habitat that ping every device and tells it, is this still alive? If it hasn't responded at least once an hour, then send me a little a message saying, hey, this device, you might want to look at it, may have dropped off, because battery reporting is not reliable. It's hard, right? Because some devices will go from 50% down to 0. Right. So if battery reporting is not reliable, it's just, if it's not responding, then right away let me know within the hour this device is down.
That's a great idea. That's available. Did you write that one, or is that available on Habitat?
I wrote my own just because it's based on, but there's a community version that you can get in the Habitat communities that monitors different aspects of devices that will pull that in. I just tweaked mine to work for me and do a lot more.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. I use that on the Ring. For the Ring devices, they have in Home Assistant, they have you can go and monitor the batteries. And it's funny, the ones that are on solar they work great. Like I've had them up, they're always at 100%. They may get down to like 92, and then the sun comes out and they go right back up. But the one on my door, on the front door, is supposed to be wired, but all summer the wire thing stopped working. And I'll be honest, I don't really know where that wire goes. Like there's a wire that comes out. I have no idea where it terminates in the house, but all winter it gives it power. As soon as it gets hot, it stops doing it. So I wonder if I have a transformer or something that's overheating and it kind of just stops working. It must be in a spot that gets warm, because I don't have air conditioning in the house. So anyways, I just had that experience. It just flipped over. I was looking at it. I'm like, oh, it's charging up my front doorbell again. All summer I was taking the battery out, recharging it, I guess it stopped working. Well, no, it got cool, started working again. So it's a great idea to have that. The thing for me is, if I'm going to build a dashboard like that, I got to have that where I see it, because once I put that thing away, then I stop looking at it. I need a dedicated dashboard monitor that I have to look at just to make sure I know what's going on all the time. That's the way it works for me. Do you have it set up like, do you get text alerts, or does it send you emails, or how do you know?
It depends on what it is. Some of them will send me text alerts. If it's more important, I get an email, right? Because I don't want to flood my email, but if it's really important, I need an email. If my alarm goes off, I actually have it email me, text me, send me a notification and call me, right? Wow. Yeah. So that integration I do through IFT, right? So I have an integration. I wrote a driver that integrates with IFT, and you send a message and it calls you and reads the message out to you, and then I add the IFT to like my, what do they call it? Your favorites on your phone. So it will get through even on do not disturb, because your alarm's going off. Yeah. Right. So, and then I can look at my cameras and see what's going on in the house at that point. Right?
I am super intimidated by you, Gavin.
This is years of like integration here.
This is awesome, though. No, I think you're in our Discord group. I think you're gonna right. I saw your name in there.
Yeah, whether or not I open it often is another story.
Yeah, well,
if they mention my name, I'll get a notification, right?
You should. I mentioned your name right before we did the show, so I imagine after this show, you might get a couple people who are like, "Hey, so what's the script for that?" Or where do I find that app? So if you get into the show, don't overwhelm them. But if you got some questions on it, jump in our Discord group at Gavin Campbell, I think is what will get you there, and you can ask those questions. So, Gavin, anything that I missed as far that you wanted to talk about that I didn't cover? One of the things, you're a Sonos guy too, right? That you do. How many? What do you have? What do you have around the house?
In terms of Sonos, in my family room, I have the Beam and two Sonos Ones as the rear speakers, and then throughout the house I'll have the IKEA Sonos speakers, those bookshelf speakers. I also have a Sonos 5, and the reason I went with Sonos, AirPlay 2. We're both iPhone people. I really like AirPlay 2. Whatever you're listening to on your phone, pick the speakers you want to go to. You can send it to the whole house. It stays in sync. I found when you mix the AirPlay 2 devices, some would go out of sync, so I stuck with Sonos. It's nice when the whole house is in sync and you're walking from room to room and the music's just blasting. My neighbors, have commented how they can hear it on my music choices, right? So it's been really, I'm a Sonos guy. Not just that, but the fact that it has the voice assistant integration means you eliminate one more device in that room. Mm-hmm. Right. So I got rid of, the lady A in the room because I have the Sonos. Right. And then because it's a sound bar on my TV, it eliminates another sound bar. Right. So it minimizes the number of devices in a room. So Sonos just worked for me. And that's what I went with.
Wow. That's a really good point that I don't hear talked about very often when it comes to Sonos, is that you eliminate a lot of other devices. I honestly hadn't thought about that before, but that's a perfect point. Right?
And the Beam is amazing.
Other items, yeah.
The Beam surprised me with how well the microphone picks you up. So the TV's blasting, you're enjoying your TV, and you say, "Hey, whatever," and it actually picks you up and mutes the TV and listens, and it's really good.
What does it have? Amazon built in? Is that
both?
The service? Both, really?
Yeah, Google or Amazon. You can only run one at a time, because I was reading that Google didn't want to allow that, right? To have both of them, where Amazon was okay with it. So yeah, but you can pick one or the other and it will do it.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay. And is that something pretty, across the line, all the new Sonos devices have it? Like the even tinier speakers, or is that a Beam only feature?
No, that would be, it's in only some of the speakers. So make sure you look. I think it's in the 1, it's in the Beam. I don't know if it's in the 5. I don't think it's in the 5. So there's only certain ones, and then they don't have it in the IKEA ones, I don't think either.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, it's a huge feature.
Well, there you go. Gavin, you do some, you got a pretty sweet mic there. On the weekends, you do some radio.
Yeah.
You told us in the pre-show a little reggae. How do we hear you if folks wanted to come out and hear what you do from a music standpoint, radio standpoint, like how would we track you down? Where's that available?
So the show is called Radio Dubplate. So the website's radiodubplate.com, and I'm going to be moving that over to Christian soon.
Oh, nice. You know, Maplegrove.
Right? I'm waiting for the renewal to come up. I have my co-host set up to, like don't renew because I'm going to be moving it. Yeah. So, I'm going to be moving it over to him soon, but it's radiodubplate.com. We have the podcast, we post the show, and we do a weekly 1 hour show and a 2 hour show. That's all posted to the podcast, but live it's on Vibe 105 in Toronto every Saturdays from 6 to 8 p.m.
Spell the website address so folks can find it.
Radio, RADIO, Dubplate, DUBPLATE.com.
Dubplate. Okay. All right. Yeah. .com. Oh, cool. Yeah. And how long have you been doing what would you call that? Like what's the name for that word? It's music and
commentary.
Yeah.
So we've been doing it. The show has been there for 26 years with my co-host. I've been doing it for about just over 20 years with him. Was when I joined.
You don't even look like you're 20. How's that possible?
No,
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I know. I remember when I started
with the mic in his hand. He's like, "All right, put me on the radio, Daddy. I'm ready."
But yeah, we've been doing it for many years, and the show has changed over the years. So sometimes we went from just playing music, and right now the show has we're doing music, but we're also doing a lot of news, the industry news. So we talk a lot about the latest stories, the latest headlines, and stuff like that, and more industry type stuff while introducing new music.
Yeah.
Right.
Around reggae.
Yeah. Right? It's all reggae. That's all reggae related.
Right. No, super cool that you get. I mean, that's kind of a combination of old school radio and new school internet stuff that you're kind of doing both. You got a following that's out there. You interview some folks that are in the industry. You do that. Has that changed with COVID at all? Is that better, worse, more listeners, less listeners?
COVID has affected it's harder. Usually when the artists come to the station, you do your interview there, right? And it was hard enough getting them to the station, but now you're trying to do Zoom interviews and stuff. Artists are sometimes very difficult to work with. You schedule a time and they don't show up. Then you have some artists that are very professional and they do show up and they're on time and they're great interviews, but we've seen we've done a number of interviews over the many years. I like seeing them in person though, because then you get to know them, and every time they came to Toronto you'd see them and stuff like that, right? And sometimes you do interview with artists before they were even big, because I remember an artist you would know is Sean Paul, right? We interviewed him before he was at this level, like when they spelt his name wrong on the record that we were playing, right? So that's how long ago.
That's fantastic.
He came with another artist, and we just happened to interview him, and now look at him today, right? So
that's pretty amazing. Great. That's pretty great. Why do you keep doing it? Like, what is it about that just keeps? I mean, it's every Saturday. It's in real time for the radio show, right? So you got to be there at 9 o'clock or whatever that is. Kind of what is it about that just? I mean, that's a long time. I mean, we've been doing this 10 years, but you've been doing that 20. Like, what keeps you going on that?
Honestly, because my co-hosts were good friends. It's a time when we get together and we just talk. Before show, after show, we hang out sometimes too. And we just do it because we love the music, we love the entertainment. Just meeting other DJs and other hosts. Just being involved. It's a time to get out. I work from home. I've been working from home for many years now. Right. So getting out to do that was always a great thing, because you get to leave the house.
Yeah. Are there many in the reggae space? Are there many channels like you, or are you guys fairly unique in the space?
In Toronto, surprisingly, we're pretty unique. Our station in general is very unique in terms of what it plays and what it offers. It's a university station. There's not a college or a commercial station that's equivalent, so we're pretty unique in what we do in the city.
That's cool. No, that's super cool. And then do you get, with the internet show, do you have listeners or followers? Do you hear from, do folks send you guys notes? Do you hear from your listeners?
We hear from listeners. Yeah, we also hear from artists when they have new songs. They'll usually send us the song in an email or something like that, and you'd be surprised, because artists coming out of England, or we've had people from South Africa, contacting us. And surprisingly, you're like, I didn't realize how big it was there. Like just the music, not our show, but the music in general there is very big. So it's amazing when you start hearing these things globally.
Yeah. That's super cool. Couple questions. Your Twitter, do you do much on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm always on Twitter. I think it's GVN Campbell. Is on Twitter, right? Just because someone took my Gavin Campbell.
How many Gavin Campbells in the world can there be? But apparently someone took it.
A lot. I get emails from Gavin Campbells in England. I've gotten them throughout the States, and I respond to people, and I actually say, "You got the wrong Gavin Campbell," and we have conversations.
Right? I have a guy. I grew up in San Jose, California, and there's another James Collison that flies to San Jose every single week, takes an Uber from the San Jose airport 5 miles to where he works. Thursday, he drives it home. I mean, he takes it back to the airport and goes home. I know this because I get his Uber receipts, right?
Yes.
And I have tried, like, how do you contact a guy like that? That's your same name. Like, I've thought through this. I've tried to find him. I've tried to look him up. I'm like, hey, I'm getting your Uber receipts. Not that it matters. There's no security. I mean, there's no security in that, but I'm getting his Uber receipts.
I was getting
stuck in a loop too, because when you try to reset that, you can't change your email on those platforms because it'll send you let's confirm through your email. So you're probably getting those. He can never change that email address. He's got to set up a whole new.
Oh, he's screwed. He is totally screwed.
Well, I did. There was a Gavin Campbell in New Jersey that was for some reason I was getting all his orders for PC parts and stuff like that, right? So I actually went into the account, looked up the orders, number was on there. I texted him. I said, hey, Gavin Campbell in New Jersey, this is Gavin Campbell in Canada. I'm getting all your receipts and your orders. The email's wrong. And, he responded, and I sent him all the emails and everything like that. And I said, there you go. Like, you want to change your email. So,
yeah. Well, it is. You're right. It is GVN. GVN Campbell is your Twitter. Go ahead, Mike.
I never have this issue. Well, I've been noticing some weird emails lately that I can tell maybe someone mistyped their email, but Vermont Department of Health let me know that I have a COVID vaccination coming up. I'm like, well, I don't live in Vermont. So, but his name's Gideon. Like, well, that's not even first name, like first initial, even if he was Gideon Uyghur. Because this is just my standard email address, and
I'm pretty sure that this Jim James, he probably goes by James because the young kids don't use Jim. That's an old guy's name. So I'm sure it's a different email address, and for whatever reason, Gmail is sending it to me. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Gavin, a couple more questions. Do you produce any of your own music, and if you do you integrate it in with Unraid or Enterprise Tech?
I don't produce any music. It's a lot of work, like producing music, web design, stuff like that. I just don't have the patience for. Right? I've tried, but it just you're never happy. I find that I'm never happy with it. Right? So it's just, I guess it's just me. So I just don't have the patience for it.
Well, you're a tech guy, right? And that what you were telling me, what you kind of brought to the show initially was kind of the tech side of things and the interest in the music, of course, right? But you're not a musician from that standpoint. No. You don't. Is your co-host a musician? Does he do any of his own stuff?
No, he's more the voice. He's great at hosting interviews. He's great at coordinating things like that. I kind of keep his PC running, for him because. All the music's gone digital now, so I look at what he was working on. I said, you know what? Let me upgrade your computer. Yeah. And I took it from it took him minutes to boot up to 18 seconds, and he was so happy. And then he says, I want to do this live over audio or live video, and then I'll set it all up and get it all going. That type of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, guys need guys like that, right? Mike does some tech support for some of the guys in his place. You need somebody sometimes because the tech side of things is super hard. Jeremy says he gets a dental bill from a Jeremy dentist in California this afternoon. It's happened for years. Yep. I've had phone contacts, credit card bills. Joe says I started getting calls on my Google Voice number to activate my heart monitor. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap! Like, can these people if it's a heart monitor, maybe this is like serious. I hope I'm not killing somebody. There's somebody in the UK who's signed up under my name for Sky. I think it's their what is Sky? It's their satellite TV
or satellite,
satellite TV or something. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, no, you're not going to get a response. I mean, I've tried sending them, like, this is the wrong. And again, I think it's where the email is sending it wrong, or I don't know. I don't completely understand it, but yeah, I would feel bad if I was getting medical devices for somebody in my email. Okay, Gavin, last question. We have to ask this. Are you a crypto guy at all? Have you gotten into the crypto stuff at all?
I tried. So, you guys convinced me to try and get into it, but for some reason in Canada, it's just difficult to get into it. And to get the money in, trying to use my credit card, debit card, any account, I can't get the money in.
Yeah.
It just gets rejected. They want your passport. They want all sorts of ID scanned and uploaded. It's scary because you don't know. I got a Coinbase account thinking, all right, Coinbase is legit. I'll get into that. I can't get the money into it. I wanted to, but I can't get the money into it, and I just gave up.
How much hard drive space do you have available? Let's maybe you could be mining it. How big's your network? Dude?
Well, I have
we have enough time
12
for that
terabytes. Yeah, the CPU is already maxed.
Jim's like, wait, here's the wallet address you plug in for your payments. Don't worry about it, Gavin. I'll collect it.
Well, good stuff. No worries. We always like to check in and see if.
What we should check in on, though, is the mental state of anyone holding SHIB for the past 2 days. It has been a white knuckle hold on for your life type of.
I was thinking of buying more. So buying more.
See, Jim, that's how we know you're a seasoned crypto guy, because when this thing has literally declined, like I think 45% in the last 2 days, and Jim's like, I'm buying the dip, right? I think I should buy the dip. That was my thought as well.
I bought it 50, it's at 68. So you're kind of like, well, I mean, now that's what I have. I only bought $50 worth.
Yeah.
It went to 115 and then now is back down to 68. So that's the swing. Yeah.
One of my crypto stories from many years ago is when Bitcoin was now starting, and a buddy messaged me and said, hey, buy this Bitcoin. It's like a penny a coin, just put $1 in. And I was like, nah, I don't know what this is. Like, I'm not even going to waste $1 on it. Right. And now I kind of regret that.
Well, you don't know. You don't
never know.
Because there's a million of these things where you're like, just put $50 in and it's gone.
For Jim and I's story, I mean, it wasn't at a penny; it was at like 200. Jim, right? Is that when we were? We had the guest on talking about it. Well, you and I both passed on it.
264. Yeah, it was a 264
on Bitcoin.
I mean, which sounded expensive at the time, but well, Gavin, thanks for coming on and being our guest. We'll have to do this again. Now that I know all this stuff that you have, like we're gonna have to do this more often. So if I ask again, will you come back?
Oh, of course. There's so many things I could talk about, that we didn't even touch.
No, you can't. In an hour and some change, you can't. It was great. It was just great to get to know you. But two, as you start thinking about if you've got something that we can cover, over the course of a show, the deal. Just ping me. Like, say, hey, I got this thing I want to. I'm always surprised at I say that to a lot of folks and they never do. I always have to go back and like, hey, are you ready? And I'm like, I told you, just ping me. So if you get something,
we feel like we're bothering you. That's
no, you're never bothering me. I guess I'd go for anybody listening too. If you got something cool you want to share, send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv, and we'll see if we can get you slotted in. But Gavin, thanks for coming on. I will say, you mentioned Christian and Maplegrove Partners. You can get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and trust. And I think Christian's going to love to host you. He is digging it whenever we get a listener to come over. But maplegrovepartners.com. Gavin, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to be here to talk about, all this various stuff. Like this is the perfect forum for I feel for me.
Well, you've listened. Listen, you've listened for a long time. If you didn't like it, you would have left a long time ago. So of course, it's perfect. I mean, you're the perfect guest for us to come on here. So with that, I'll remind everyone, don't forget, we are live every Thursday. We do this every Thursday. I saw some new names out there. Mike, we had some new names last week as well. come out on Thursday nights. We have this good a time every Thursday night. And we'd love to have you join us. 8 p.m. Central, theaverageguy.tv/live. We'll get you there. I have a super cool new tool that I'm going to show these guys in the post show. So when you come out live, Gavin, can you stay around for a few minutes on the post?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Perfect. When you come out live, you get kind of the crazy post show, which is kind of fun. So you should be joining us live. And for those who are live, stay with us. With that, we'll say goodnight, everybody. Okay, you guys hang tight. Oh, talk amongst yourselves for a second. I got to go get this tool. I'll be right back.
Are we still live?
Sounds good.
Are we still live?
Yeah, we are still live. Yes, still live. So chat room's still here with us. By the way, shout out to Joe. Joe in chat, he hooked me up. He actually got called on one of those auctions to buy a graphics card, right? I think it was Newegg or whatever. And he got another auction earlier in the year. So he was kind enough to say, hey, Mike, are you looking for a graphics card? And he bought it, and then I paid him for it. So I didn't get scalped. He could have scalped me, but he didn't. So Joe, you're in chat. I just want to say thank you publicly. It's already installed, and this 3060 Ti is absolutely bonkers. Nice. It is fantastic. So thanks, Joe.
It is a testament to how great our community is. That's Seriously. The one. And listen, I didn't build this community. Dave McCabe built this community, and I just hijacked it. And it's just awesome, Mike, that Joe sent me things before too.
And his beer all the time. I mean,
yeah, I know. Yeah. It's super great
build here.
By the way, my backup beer, I moved to this West O Shandy tonight. West O, I thought was West Omaha, but it's West Okoboji, which Lake Okoboji is not far from us here. It's up in Iowa, up in northern Iowa. Pretty good backup second beer. We did this in pre, but it did that Shiner. Delicious. Just super delicious. Okay. This is the craziest thing I've ever bought.
I've never seen you this excited. Yeah,
okay, I bought these. This is like a chainsaw lopper tool. So you open that up like that, right? And hold on, let me get a bigger screen here so you can see this thing.
Whoa.
Yeah, so Black & Decker makes it. It's the battery pops in right
so
there.
It is powered. Okay.
Yeah, little 20 volt battery in the bottom there. You have to have both hands on the grip here. You got to squeeze these to make it work.
Hands for safety.
Then this opens up this about 4 to 5 inches you can get in the grip. There's a chainsaw in there, which is super cool. And this opens up as well in case you need more space. But I had never seen anything like this, and I was normally I just buy a chainsaw, but I saw a slick deal for this was like $85.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I got some neighbors' trees that are just pesky that I want to go up and just, I don't want to do any work. Like I don't want to go, I just want to go.
Well, especially for the size of that. Have you used this yet?
I haven't. No. Okay. No,
I'll be very interested to see the reviews. Cause think about it. If you're doing the chomp ones, you can't do a log that big. You need a chainsaw. So that thing, I am going to for those larger diameter branches.
Yeah, I'm going to get a Black & Decker chainsaw that, a little 12-incher that shares the same battery. I bought a 20 volt aftermarket battery that's like a 6.5.
Yeah.
So it's a little thicker than normal, and you get a little more juice out of it. But I'm going to buy a chainsaw that I can switch that battery between the two. It's not like I'd be double fisting them, right?
Yeah. Right.
Right. Cause this is going to require that I have my hands on at the same time. Doesn't that just look, Gavin, what do you think? Are you a yard guy? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I have a bunch of tools like this. I'm a DeWalt guy.
Okay.
So all my tools, and it's the same thing. I'm in that battery ecosystem. I have backup batteries, and for the tree limbs and stuff, I have a little, what do they call it? The name, a little saw, a rotary saw or something like that. And I just use that power. I put the battery in and it just cuts through it like nothing.
Is it the DeWalt one? Have you seen? Yeah, that thing is amazing. So my dad got that. It's DeWalt, and it goes on the pole. So you can put the pole really high, and then from the bottom you run it, and it's essentially this little chainsaw, same size as that one, Jim, but it's on top of a pole by DeWalt, and then it just. And
I almost got the
branches.
pole. I almost got the pole saw for that.
Yeah, that was pretty. I took it off the pole and I used it. I cut down a full dead tree in my yard with that tiny thing.
Yeah,
I was shocked. I was like, "This thing is."
It's a good. Yeah,
oh, it's great.
It's a good bite. Jim asks, "Do you climb up the tree and out on a limb before you cut it?"
Of course.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, I mean, safety for. Listen, I'm not climbing up. I'm not climbing up any trees. This is mostly my neighbors have. I have a lot of these weed bushes that weed is probably the wrong word to use because it's not weed. They're bushes that I consider weeds.
We're talking about your unmentionables now. I'm talking about my Unraid dockers. We're talking about the plants in your yard.
It's legal up here.
I know, good.
Not Nebraska.
Listen, no judgment on this. But I wanted some of those in the season. They get pretty thick through the season. So in the fall, I want to go back and just be able to go in there and zip and then be able to chop those up into smaller, smaller limbs. And I watched some reviews on YouTube, and this kind of does the trick without kind of all the chainsaw safety problems. Chainsaws have that. I'm still, like I said, I'm still going to get a chainsaw because we built this new fire pit and I need to go cut some firewood for it. So I'm going to get a chainsaw to do it too. But I just thought it looked.
That thing's awesome.
I thought it looked pretty cool. I don't know. We'll see how practical it is. It did come. It comes with its own oil thing, and every 10 minutes you're supposed to oil the chain with it. That seemed a little inconvenient. I wanted more of it. On a chainsaw, you've got like an oil reservoir, and this does not. This is more of like flip the thing, put some oil in, go 10 minutes, refill it back up. So not sure it's meant for like big industrial where you're going to use this all the time, but I think for my setting, I think it's going to work pretty great. So I just got the battery charger, which I ordered all separately because this is the other thing. I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but lately all the tool deals are batteryless. In other words, they sell you the tool, no battery, and then you go buy the battery, and it's like $8,000 for the battery, right? Gavin, you're shaking your head, yeah.
And then that's why I'm in the DeWalt ecosystem. So I got a bunch of batteries from early in deals, and now I can buy the tools for cheap, and all the batteries work with all of them, right? So it's really good to always have a backup battery, and it doesn't matter how many backup batteries you have, you'll never put them on the charger. You always find, like I always find that it's like, oh, I'll just get the backup battery. I never charged it. I actually automated the charger.
Of course you did.
Yeah. So the chargers
share that script with me for sure. I need that Docker container. I need
it's actually like you put it in the charger, you turn it on, it starts charging, and then when it's fully charged, I actually have it turn off the power so that it's not sitting there constantly, going at it. So it notifies me, hey, your battery's fully charged, and it cuts the power. So
that's perfect.
That's a great idea. Yeah. The with this, the battery, like you can get for Black & Decker, you can get aftermarket batteries. The 2 milliamps or whatever those are like $22. So they're not terrible for Black & Decker. I know DeWalt is just ridiculous in batteries. Like those are going to run you like $90. Now they're good. They're really good batteries, but so I think the battery I got was 35, a little bigger, lasts a little bit longer. I thought my other charger, like I thought my 40 volt one would do the trick, but no, they're actually different. So you don't have a jackass like me try to actually charge them because they're smart, but they're not that smart, right? So I ended up having to buy another charger. I bought another aftermarket one for like $20 and got it in there. So I'm going to wait for that chainsaw to get a chainsaw deal that has uses the same battery, and then I can swap them out kind of with what I need. So,
and then Jim, your next project, I have it for you for the grandkids. If you have one of those Barbie cars, the kids can get when they drive around, you can actually get a little converter and throw those batteries on, and they're super high voltage, and those Barbie cars all of a sudden scream.
Nice.
We did this at the farm because we had a bunch of them. We have 5 boys under the age of 5, so we have a bunch of those types of cars, and my brother-in-law got the adapters. So because we all run DeWalt batteries, and we just throw DeWalt batteries in these things, and these kids just rip around. It's pretty hilarious to watch the difference in speed on those little cars once you throw a battery like that on it.
I don't think we have one of those, but lots of commentary coming in through the chat room. Justin says just buy firewood. It's cheaper than the saw. It's probably true. Jim says firewood, remote start gas logs. You could probably write a script for that, Gavin, that would say, when this camera sees me go out on the patio and it's this temperature, start the fire.
I probably could. Yes. That sounds like something that could be. I automate my fireplace. So
really?
Yeah. Through Bond Hub. I use a Bond Hub because it's all radio frequency control. Okay. And then I integrate that with with Habitat. And from there, I can turn on and off through the Lady A, everything, control it, flame up, flame down, etc., etc. And then even when it's on, I have the Echo Bee go into a certain mode because you don't want to be measuring the temperature in the hot room and throw off the rest of the house.
Yeah.
Right. So I have it adjusted so it now measures just the master bedroom while that fireplace is on, just so it doesn't go nuts. There's a lot.
There's not much that's not automated in your house, is there? We could just probably keep probing questions and
like the funny part, the wife doesn't even know a lot of this stuff. The house just does it for the only one.
The shower just turns on when you step in.
I haven't got that far yet, but
that would be great.
The only one she really likes is at night before going to bed. We just say good night. Right. To Lady A, and it shuts the blinds, locks all the doors, turns off all the lights, does security, everything like that. Right.
That's my favorite one too. I just wanted to step in the shower and for it to go, hello, Michael. And like the water's at my temperature that I like.
Yeah.
That would be a great way to start the day. And speakers to start playing my music. Yeah. That would be great.
They have faucets that do that from
Delta. Do they really?
Makes. Yeah. And they're Alexa enabled, and they, you can do all those things. They're like $900.
Oh, wow. Expensive. The showers are expensive too.
Yeah.
Someday in the future when it comes down in price.
Yeah, it's like, hello, Michael. You can't take a shower today.
I want it to be Jarvis.
Oh, you're gonna.
That's the voice I'm imagining in my head. Justin said it needs to be the Hal voice. I think it needs to be Jarvis.
No, you can't take a shower today.
Good morning, sir.
All right. Let's see. Let me see if I can get these things off. Well, I was super excited about this thing. I'm going to get to use it on Saturday. I've got some areas I've been already eyeing that are going to get the loppers. So we'll get out there and get chopping and just see how, one of the things is it's heavy. Like it's not well balanced, and it is heavy. So I'm kind of wondering, like, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll come back in a couple of weeks and I'll just be ripped in my shoulders because I'll have been manhandling these loppers for it. Well, anyways. All right. Well, hey, if you're listening live, thanks for coming out and being a part of the show tonight. Next week, I think Brian, who's normally in chat, Brian, are you still out there?
He was there. Yeah.
Yeah, he was out here earlier. Brian's joining us.
1 minute ago, he chatted. He's here.
So Brian's on next week. Brian, I'll be sending you an email and we'll talk a little bit. I know you'd sent me an email like, hey, what are we going to talk about? And we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go along this week. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next week. Don't forget after Brian, a week of just Mike and I catching up on some things. We got some stuff to catch up on. And then Sammy, who I just released, she did her kind of first vlog.
It was really good.
Good.
I'm not even a crochet guy, and I was invested in that video. I was like, I want to watch this dragon get crochet. This is fantastic.
It's pretty cool. If you're into D&D at all,
really cool. She does a really good job.
She's pretty talented. So she's going to come on. We're going to talk about that the Friday after Thanksgiving here in the U.S. And so the show moves to, I think that's the 26th, Friday the 26th. The 25th is Thanksgiving for us. So she's coming on as well. So don't forget, come back and join us. We'll see you guys